Hey guys, we got some more news about The Mandalorian to cover from Bespin Bulletin here, so I wanted to go over all of that in this video. Star Wars The Mandalorian Season 4, stylized series, Ahsoka Season 2 plot points will not be absorbed into The Mandalorian. Back in 2020, Lucasfilm announced a bevy of Star Wars projects. One of those projects was a spin-off of the hit Disney Plus series The Mandalorian and was titled Rangers of the New Republic. Little details on Rangers were ever released, besides that it'll be produced by Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, a given as it was planned to be part of their Mandoverse, and that one of the stars of the series was to be Gina Carano, who played Cara Dune in the first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian. We all know what happened with Rangers. It was scrapped in 2021 after Carano exited the Star Wars universe and the role as Cara Dune. Ultimately, some of the planned plot points from Rangers of the New Republic were absorbed into the 3rd season of The Mandalorian, which was confirmed by Lucasfilm president Kathleen Kennedy, though we don't know what plot points in the 3rd season of The Mandalorian came from the scrapped Rangers series. We can probably all assume the same handful. The Mandalorian has successfully spawned 2 additional spin-off series, The Book of Boba Fett and Ahsoka, with another waiting in the wings, Skeleton Crew, which fans likely won't see released until November 2024. The Book of Boba Fett went on to become a hit for Lucasfilm and Disney Plus, gaining great viewing figures and birthed some social media buzz-worthy moments, but does not have a follow-up season in sight. Ahsoka had respectable viewing figures, but didn't live up to the success of The Mandalorian or The Book of Boba Fett. Though there's been far more talk of a 2nd season of Ahsoka than there has for The Book of Boba Fett, there's also been no official word from Lucasfilm or Disney in regards to Ahsoka getting a 2nd season. The line coming out through the trade since the series concluded in October is that a 2nd season is being and has been discussed, though it has not been greenlit. Now we're 2 months removed from the Ahsoka finale, and there's still been no word on if the series will receive a 2nd season. Some fans have speculated if Ahsoka doesn't get a renewal, we will see plot points planned for the 2nd season interwoven into other Mandoverse series, just as plot points from Rangers of the New Republic bled into the 3rd season of The Mandalorian. However, this reportedly won't be the case for The Mandalorian Season 4. Reliable Star Wars insider and reporter Making Star Wars took to the subreddit Star Wars News to share some tidbits from Skeleton Crew and opted to include a tidbit relating to the 4th season of The Mandalorian. Making Star Wars shared that a single source of his connected to the next season of The Mandalorian informed him that there are no plans for plot points of Ahsoka Season 2 to be absorbed into the 4th season of The Mandalorian, amid worries amongst some fans that Ahsoka won't receive a 2nd season, as one has yet to be announced. As we are referring to The Mandalorian Season 4 as a season and not a film, it was said by Making Star Wars yesterday during a live stream of his podcast that he's heard from sources that The Mandalorian Season 4 is still planned as a season of TV and is not being transformed into a movie, as reported by Jeff Snyder on Friday. I was planning to include it in an article I had planned to release this week that I heard from sources separate from those tied to Making Star Wars that Season 4 of Mando is not a movie and it's currently moving forward as a TV series. On Friday, Jeff Snyder, who's been reliable with Star Wars information in the past, recorded that he had heard from a Disney source that The Mandalorian Season 4 was being transformed into a movie. Snyder previously shot down the idea in the summer when Making Star Wars reported that Disney were simply considering the idea, that it was merely an option and it was dependent on how badly the production of The Mandalorian and other Star Wars projects were being impacted by the WGA and SAG-AFTRA strikes. Making Star Wars shared that he believes Snyder is working on outdated information at this time and that The Mandalorian Season 4 is not being turned into a movie. Something I too have heard from separate sources, as I mentioned earlier in this article. I'm still currently hearing that the next planned Star Wars movie to release in cinemas is the Daisy Ridley-led New Jedi Order movie, and that The Mandalorian Season 4 will release in 2025 on Disney Plus, just as I reported 2 months ago. Personally, I still expect a 2nd season of Ahsoka, not from any insider knowledge. If Ahsoka didn't receive a 2nd season, I wouldn't expect some of its plot points to be absorbed by The Mandalorian Season 4, just from the fact that it's supposed to shoot sometime early next year. But I could see those planned plot points winding up in the Mandalorian crossover event film set to be directed by Dave Filoni. So we've also got this article over here from Bespin Bolton talking about The Mandalorian Season 4 starting to film in February of 2024. Alright, so the 4th season of The Mandalorian was due to begin filming in late September of this year at Manhattan Beach Studios, California. However, filming was delayed indefinitely due to both the Writers Guild of America strike and the SAG-AFTRA strike. Now that both strikes have been resolved, Lucasfilm are busy with pre-production on the series once again, as hinted at by one of Din Djarin's actors, Brendan Wayne, a couple of weeks ago when he said that the season 4 was gearing up for filming. I've said in articles and on podcasts recently that filming would begin in the early part of next year, and now I've had multiple sources tell when. According to at least 2 sources, The Mandalorian Season 4 is gearing up to start filming sometime in February. Could be very late January, but February seems more realistic from what I've been hearing for a number of weeks. I don't know how long filming is set to last on the 4th season, but if it follows the production of The Mandalorian Season 3, it'll likely film for 6 months, meaning it would wrap by August. I've been hearing that the February start for a number of weeks, and though things could well easily change as of the time of writing, I'm hearing a February start. As to when The Mandalorian Season 4 will debut on Disney+, I have always heard 2025 and have written about that several times in the past. Even before production was halted due to strikes, I was told The Mandalorian Season 4 was looking to release in the earlier part of 2025, and now it'll likely be a little later than first planned. The Mandalorian Season 3 debuted on Disney+ an entire year after the series wrapped in March 2022, hitting our screens in March of this year. Obviously, at this time, we don't know how long the season will spend in post-production, but if it follows the season before, it could be that we don't see it on the streaming service until the summer, but this is merely my own speculation. There'll be no shortage of Star Wars content in 2024 with the release of 2 live-action series, The Acolyte and Skeleton Crew, the latter of which is set during the time of The Mandalorian, and 2 animated series, The Bad Batch Season 3 and Tales of the Jedi Season 2. In terms of live action series, I believe The Acolyte will release first, and I suspect it'll be sometime in the summer of 2024, probably August, given Lucasfilm's affinity to release series that month. As I've said in the past, with Skeleton Crew arriving later in November and Andor Season 2 unfortunately slipping into the early part of 2025, as I shared exclusively in September, meaning we'll get at least 2 live-action Star Wars series in both 2024 and 2025. And then the rest of this article just kind of goes over what we have already talked about from before, so we'll just skip over that. Alright, so now that we've got The Mandalorian Season 4 back to being a series and not a movie, well, there's a lot to talk about for that. So I had recently said that I think a movie would actually be a good change for The Mandalorian, just in terms of creating a more concise, streamlined, and character-driven story for Din Djarin, based on the fact that he kind of got sidelined in Season 3. Well, don't get me wrong, I'm a big fan of Bo-Katan, and I am one of those people, I think, that actually enjoyed Season 3 of The Mandalorian, but still, you gotta recognize that the overall story, it didn't have an impact, I think, on the overall Star Wars galaxy that we kind of hoped it would, and it also sidelined Din, so we didn't get his character progression moving forward past what was set up in Season 2, unless you consider the fact that he went to the mines of Mandalore and he now keeps his helmet on all the time. But that's the other thing. Bo-Katan saw the Mythosaur in that episode of Mandalorian Season 3. You know, we thought there would be a lot of potential for the Mythosaur in that season. The Mythosaur is such a symbolic and kind of prophesized thing in the Mandalorian culture, and you thought there was so much that was going to be set up in the Mandalorian Season 3 about that, and then just never showed up again. So there's a bunch of lost potential there. So I'm not saying that the next season of The Mandalorian has to go back to a Mythosaur Mandalorian culture type of focused. I just think that if you're going to show these type of things early on in the season, you know, really set up big things for the rest of the season. You got to deliver on that. Mandalorian season 3 did not deliver on that. You ended up with a bunch of filler episodes that kind of just kept taking the Mandalorians and Din Djarin and Bo-Katan from one place to the next. They do kind of a little side quest, you might even say, and then we're back to square one from the next episode. Sure, at some point we can get to Mandalore and they take it back, but it kind of felt like everything in between was just filler. I mean, that's the big thing about it, is there were a lot of filler episodes in Mandalorian season 3. You had that one, I can't think of the name of the planet, but when the young Mandalorians got taken by those bird creatures to the nest, and Din and Bo had to go rescue him. Like, sure, it's a fun episode maybe, but what is it providing to the overall story? There's just not much there. And to take it back to that episode in the Mines of Mandalore, I think it's just a big regression in Din's character to have him go back to keeping the helmet on all the time. He makes some big decisions in The Mandalorian Season 2, specifically right at the very end when he takes off his helmet in front of everybody who's on that Imperial cruiser, specifically to show Grogu his face. And then, right back into Season 3, we immediately get him taking that swim in the Mines of Mandalore to now keep his helmet on all the time again. And I just think that's kind of a regression for Din. That's not going to take his character anywhere. It's not going to make him any more interesting. On the other hand, I would actually like to see more of Bo-Katan. I think rebuilding Mandalore could be an interesting topic to explore. I don't want to focus the entire show on that. I don't think Din should be spending a bunch of time on Mandalore or anything. I just would like to see him interact with Bo, kind of seeing how she's doing with rebuilding Mandalore, since he had such a large role in retaking it. Now, talking about Bo-Katan, I think Din and Bo had some pretty good chemistry in the third season of The Mandalorian. There were a lot of small moments that really showed how well they worked together, kind of the humor they had between each other that just bounced off each other really well. I think specifically in the episode, I think it was episode 6 maybe, with Jack Black and Lizzo. I think that was great at showing how well Din and Bo worked together. You could also argue that that episode was entirely filler, apart from the very end when Din gave the Darksaber back to Bo. But we just gotta move past that. Now, one thing I noticed kind of throughout the entirety of The Mandalorian, all the seasons, I feel like Din just keeps getting all of his other interesting things he has taken away from him. Like, he had his Ambit pulse rifle. I don't remember exactly what happened to him. He might have lost it when the Razor Crest blew up. Obviously, he lost the Razor Crest, though I do prefer the N1 Starfighter. He lost the Beskar Spear that got melted down to be Grogu's chainmail. And then he lost the Darksaber. Well, he gave the Darksaber away, which, in my opinion, was very lazy writing. I think he could have done so much more by having Din keep the Darksaber, but they decided against that, so. And then just talking about sticking with the series over a movie, I think the most important things are creating a really streamlined and meaningful story that, cuts out all of the filler episodes, but at the same time has more consistent episode lengths. How in previous seasons we'll get some episodes that are like 50 minutes, and then we'll get some episodes that are like 30 minutes, and it's just really jarring to watch for the different weeks that these episodes are premiering. Some weeks you'll get so much thrown at us, and the next week it's just a quick little side quest that doesn't do anything for the characters, for the story, and it just kind of feels meaningful. So you need consistent episode length and consistent story progression in each episode. And I think the biggest thing that I wanted to mention is Pedro Pascal. He was not on set for The Mandalorian Season 3, as far as we know. I mean, that seems pretty clear considering the fact that Din Djarin had no helmetless scenes in Season 3, where he did in both Season 1 and Season 2. I just think the helmetless scenes give Din Djarin a great way for the fans to connect with him, to show more meaning to the characters around him, like especially when you look at Migs Mayfeld in that, I think it was episode 6 or 7 episode 7 of the first season, where Din Djarin has to remove his, well, stormtrooper type of helmet in front of Mix Mayfield. You know, there was a lot going on there that you really saw in Pedro's eyes and everything, and I think we need more of that in future seasons. So whatever Lucasfilm can do, I think they gotta get Pedro on set to do at least one helmetless scene, and I think that would go a long way. Alright, that's about all I have for this video. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Consider liking and subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one.